Good morning and welcome to day 35 of Geriatric 1944's Coronavirus Diaries. I've actually been self-isolating now for about 55 or 56 days since I first got some kinds of symptoms of a cold or flu or whatever and decided to self-isolate, and I've been doing it ever since. But I'm actually a bit fed up with it now, as I think everybody is. I also have been going out, obviously, once a day to do exercise, buy food and so on and so forth. And I decided yesterday to go out for a drive. I needed to go out all the way down to my bookkeeper's house because I had to provide her with documents, sign various things. Don't forget, for about 7 weeks now, my business has been unable to continue. Even though most of it these days is done online, all sorts of things needed to be signed, tax returns and bits and pieces. So essentially, I really had to go down to my bookkeeper. It meant sort of an hour's drive out into the country. And also I wanted to bring her various other food items because she is in her 80s. And although neighbours and people around the community have been doing a brilliant job, there are quite a lot of things they couldn't get, especially sort of rather pleasant meals and luxury items I wanted to give her too. So combining all of those, plus the fact that the sun has been out, and my favourite time in life is when the sun is shining and I can go out in baby car. Baby car with the roof down and the sun shining is one of the great joys of existence. So I drove down to the country after dropping off the food and everything and signing all the various documents for my bookkeeper. I drove around, I visited our old house, Cobbitts in Forest Green, which has been done up beautifully without ruining the fact it was built in 1482. So they've had to develop it very slowly but nicely. They seem to have done a great job. Our original house, where I was living from the age of virtually naught until about 7 or 8, which was Brookhurst, and I went and took a look at that. Lukins across the road, where my uncle used to live, Sir Kenneth Lee of Tootles, who you can also see on my photograph section in my website. And it was actually a terrific time. I really thoroughly enjoyed myself in the sunshine, sun shining into a little car, looking at the world, cruising around some of the places I haven't been to for ages now, and just getting a really nice time. Returning, of course, we now find two things happening. The thing that really irritates me about the media with its agenda, and we know, those of us with brains, that the media started this all with a fairly trivial virus in Wuhan in China, which they tried to get rid of by clamping really down with a lockdown on Wuhan, spreading it towards the whole of China so it didn't get out too much. I think they've had now 6,000 deaths in the 1.5 billion population. They clamped down pretty well on it, and then it started spreading. But of course the media picked up on it and they boosted it as a plague, as opposed to a virus which is pretty trivial for 98% of the people and can be lethal and serious for a tiny proportion of those who get it. The result is that a very few deaths occur, compared to the fact that there are millions of people dying every day in the world, because that's the way life is. People have seized upon this, or at least the media has seized upon this, and tried to make it into a major plague, whereas it really isn't at all. If you look at it, I think we're getting to something like 200,000 deaths in the whole period of coronavirus, which is tiny compared to the amount of deaths in the world generally. But anyway, what they've been doing is, because they need to keep this going, they've been interviewing the relatives of people who died, all of whom, of course, are terribly distressed, cry on camera as needed, and the press get photographs of them and do spreads and all, the people who've died so far. This has really sickened me because the undercurrent, the backstory is those of us who have relatives who've died of cancer or sepsis or flu or strokes or heart attacks or road accidents or the millions of other reasons that people die don't matter. We're not important. They only care if they died of coronavirus. Well, of course, we don't know that many people died of coronavirus anyway. Coronavirus may well have provoked something that was happening anyway. So someone who was due to die in 3-4 months' time dies now because the coronavirus activates certain parts of the illness. But even so, that the media only cover that, and it really is, I think, offensive to people who have had relatives and loved ones die of other reasons. Every time they print an interview or a photo of those people who should be left to bereave and to grief in silence, they are pushing the backstory. The other deaths do not matter. Sometimes the media can be so irresponsible and so unpleasant. Not intentionally, they just don't think of things like this. They only think of, is it a good story? How can we keep inflating it? Having said that, I've just watched Prime Minister Boris Johnson make a very good speech where he didn't do as I feared he was going to do, and that is fall into the trap of having had the virus and having experienced near death with it, really wanting to stamp it out and therefore absolutely being far, far more strict than necessary because it had affected him. That doesn't seem to be happening. He seems to be handling this pretty well and in a balanced way. Fingers crossed is all I can say. Anyway, on the theme of people dying from various things, I thought I'd finish off with a track of mine which I always loved, about a girl who died of a drug overdose. I always thought this was really good. Very few people ever heard it, but I'm rather proud of it. So I leave you today, and see you tomorrow, with the track of mine called Crying Again.
When I met her, she was crying on the dance floor at the disco, with her blonde hair all disheveled and her blue eyes wet with tears. I said, what's the matter, baby? She said, hang-ups with my daddy. So I held her little white hand. She was crying again. So I took her in the rhythm of the dance floor at the disco, and we cuddled to slow dancing. And I saw a tiny smile. She was laughing, she was lovely, and she held me close beside her. Then I took her home and left her. She was crying again. They just don't understand me, only want me to reflect them, never want me to be happy. She was crying again. The next time that I saw her on the dance floor at the disco, all her hair was green and purple. There were pins hung in her ears. She was wearing torn blue denim and a good deal too much makeup. She was standing on her own. She was crying again. When she saw me, she was happy, took me dancing to the rhythms, said she left her home and family and was living with a friend. But I saw her eyes too open and the bruises on her white skin. When she saw me look at her arms, she was crying again. They just don't understand me, only want me to reflect them, never want me to be happy. She was crying again. That's the last time that I saw her. Little girl of pretty 14, wondered where she could have gone to, with her hang-ups and her fears, asking questions at the disco. Heard she never made the summer. When they found her in a toilet, she'd been crying again. They just don't understand me, only want me to reflect them, never want me to be happy. She was crying again. They just don't